This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We begin in southeastern Manitoba tonight, where a big cleanup is underway after some communities received a deluge of rain overnight. In some cases, more than 100 millimeters of rain fell in just a matter of hours, leaving flooding, damage to homes, and frustration. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod brings us more from Steinbach.
People in Steinbach were getting creative Friday. Some streets were still flooded after an overnight downpour.
We always get our daughter an ice cap. She's handicapped. She's 31, and this is her motivation to have good days at her day program.
Dave Menzies has lived in the area for decades.
We've been in Steinbach for 34 years. We've lived here for 30 years, and this is the worst I've ever seen it, ever.
But it was an all too familiar scene for Graham Pollock and the Steinbach and area animal rescue. The basement took on 2 meters of water. The rescue was also flooded last year when 156 millimeters of rain fell on the city.
I think the basement is a write-off. I do. I think they're going to have to rip it right down to the styrofoam and start again, restud it, and new drywall and everything.
Animals were moved to safety, but the organization will feel the cost of the repairs.
We have insurance that's going to cover a fair bit of it, but we still have to cut the check for $25,000 for the deductible.
Steinbach was blasted with around 135 millimeters of rain. The city says drainage channels, creeks, and ditches throughout the city were either at or over capacity and spilling over their banks. Sewer systems were operating at capacity during and after the storm. As of Friday morning, the systems had returned to normal. Hayden Parsons spent Friday pumping sewage out of his recently renovated basement. His home also flooded in last year's storm.
This is a pretty big kick in the teeth to finally finish a great project. We can finally enjoy the basement again, and sure enough, yeah, she floods again.
The city says the backup was likely a result of the storm exceeding the design capacity of the sewer system.
This is a pretty big kick in the teeth to finally finish a great project. We can finally enjoy the basement again, and sure enough, yeah, she floods again.
Steinbach was dealing with the impact of the storm well into the afternoon. Now the city says it's looking into whether the storm will qualify for the province's disaster financial assistance program. In the meantime, they're asking people who may have damage that can't be insured to check the province's website for more information. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Steinbach.
All right, let's bring in weather specialist Khalil Hassanali tonight for a first check on our forecast. And Khalil, it was not just Steinbach that was dealing with the rain.
A lot of rain came down, Riley, in the overnight hours in Steinbach. In fact, 2 months of rain in just one overnight period. So in fact, that is going to be levels that we do not usually see, and that's what's led to some of the issues and the news that we've been seeing coming out of Steinbach. So what did we see in terms of the actual number of millimeters that came down? Looking at close to 135 millimeters that came down from Thursday to this afternoon. So just incredible amounts of rain. And we're looking at different parts of the province too, which saw close to 80 in Marchand, in Sanford 39, and in Winnipeg up to 20 millimeters of rain in the less than 24 hours. So incredible amounts of rain, especially for everyone in Steinbach. Looking through the next little while for us, what are we going to be seeing in terms of the weather? 16 degrees is our overnight low. And then as we're going towards tomorrow morning, we're looking at a temperature right around 17 degrees under a mostly cloudy sky. Riley?
All right, thanks, Khalil. A Manitoba cabinet minister is apologizing for resharing a social media post in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Nahanni Fontaine criticized the right-wing activist a day after he was fatally shot in the U.S. And as the CBC's Josh Crabb reports, the words shared aren't sitting well with the Premier.
Gunned down while speaking at a campus event Wednesday at Utah Valley University. The fatal shooting of right-wing commentator Charlie Kirk has been condemned across the political spectrum, including by Manitoba's NDP Premier Wab Kinew.
And the idea that violence would take any life is wrong.
This after a member of Kinew's cabinet, Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine, apologized for a social media post she reshared a day after Kirk's assassination. The social media post shared by Fontaine called Kirk a mouthpiece who was racist, xenophobic, and transphobic, among other things. It said, quote, "I extend absolutely no empathy for people like that," end quote. It also says in this situation, empathy is reserved for Kirk's children and that they grow up in a country that's opposite of what their father envisioned. CBC requested an on-camera interview with Fontaine. The minister responded with an emailed statement. In it, Fontaine says, "I apologize for sharing a post yesterday on the murder of Charlie Kirk. Violence has no place in our democracy. Political debate is achieved with words and discussion. In a world too often divided, we should strive to show empathy to everyone, even those we don't agree with."
I asked our minister to apologize because I want us to be a force as a government, as you would expect as Manitobans, a force for openness and dialogue and taking the temperature down.
One political science professor says Fontaine is outspoken in her support for Indigenous people, marginalized and vulnerable people, but the University of Manitoba's Christopher Adams says the post shared crossed a line.
She's retracted it and she's apologized, but I would say that someone's been murdered, and then to talk nasty about that person, that's different than taking positions on those social issues.
This is the second time Fontaine has had to apologize in recent months after making negative comments about sharing the stage with a sign language interpreter in June. Canoe says while he had a conversation with the minister Friday, he has no plans to remove Fontaine from cabinet. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's mayor plans to publish a bulletin every week highlighting a repeat offender. And as Bartley Kivas reports, this is part of an effort to pressure the federal government on bail reform.
Winnipeg's mayor says people in his city are fed up with crime, and he wants Ottawa to follow through on a promise to amend legislation governing bail. The mayor says too many people out on bail are getting charged with offenses, so he plans to publish an example of a repeat offender every week.
This is about the people of Winnipeg and the safety of citizens of Winnipeg. And if we have individuals who continue to make Winnipeg unsafe and continue to prey upon Winnipeggers, vulnerable, residents in their homes, it's got to stop.
There have been several recent high-profile examples of cases involving repeat offenders. 2 out of 4 teens charged in a Walmart robbery earlier this summer were out on bail. So was the accused in the Hollow Water First Nation stabbings, and a man accused in a fatal crash near Portage La Prairie, who was out on bail at the time, walked away from where he was released. Winnipeg's police chief says his officers spend a lot of resources on repeat offenders.
I know that the top arrests that our members are constantly arresting people for are breaches of some type of court order.
Nonetheless, there's no clear evidence more people out on bail are committing crimes.
These are very sensational, tragic, horrible things that have happened, but this is not the norm of what the criminal justice system deals with every day.
While the province issues about 40,000 charges a year, it can't say how many of those charges were laid against people out on bail.
Most of those people are getting bail, and in fact, most of those people get through their whole process without breaching their bail conditions and having charges laid against them.
Gillingham, who faces re-election next year, concedes the overall crime rate in Winnipeg is down.
It doesn't feel that way for a lot of people. And what matters really in many ways is people's confidence in this city, in the judicial system, and whether or not there's a feeling of safety.
The mayor says he won't reveal the identities of the repeat offenders he plans to cite in his weekly bulletins. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The RCMP officer injured in a crash following a mass stabbing at Hollow Water First Nation says the tragedy will stay with her forever. Corporal Brianne Bartmanovich released a statement thanking those who have reached out during her recovery. She thanks hospital staff, first responders, and her fellow officers for the care she's received. Police say 26-year-old Tyrone Samard killed his 18-year-old sister and wounded 7 others on the First Nation last week before he fled in a stolen vehicle and died in a crash with an RCMP cruiser heading to the community. Bartmanovich has worked out of the Powerview detachment serving the First Nation for 7 years. She says her thoughts are with the victims and hopes the community and first responders can move forward and heal. The National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation is getting a new permanent home at the University of Manitoba with the help of $20 million from the Manitoba government. The centre collects historical records, sacred items, and the statements of residential school survivors. It has been operating out of a temporary space at the U of M since 2015.
It's about the survivors, but really it's about the young people. It's about making sure that your kids and our grandkids never forget what happened in the residential school and always remember the courage and the resilience and the strength of residential school survivors.
The land for the future site was gifted by the U of M, which will continue to provide support for the facility. Coming up, we take you to Winnipeg City Hall. A plan for 5 supportive housing developments is being met with mixed reviews. Dozens packed council chambers today, but didn't get a chance to speak. That story and more local news when we return. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Let's take you to Winnipeg City Hall now, where a plan to create 5 supportive housing developments was on the hot seat today. The plan drew dozens to council chambers to speak who didn't get a chance to voice their views. The CBC's Cameron McLean was there.
What services will be provided in their neighborhood?
That question of what the province plans to do with 5 city-owned properties hung over the hearing at Friday's Property Committee. The city has selected 5 of its properties for the first phase of a plan to create supportive housing. The city hopes to begin construction in late 2026. The earliest people could move in would be in 2027. Councillors repeatedly asked staff how the city can ensure community members know how the buildings will be used. Staff said the province would be in charge of designing the buildings and choosing the operators.
I think at that point it would be a good idea for us to communicate with the public around what's coming next.
But there will be no formal decision by council to yay or nay that?
As currently how we've applied the recommendations in this report, no.
The city needs to rezone each of the properties, enabling the province to build. Units could go to people escaping homelessness, refugees, people struggling with mental health issues, or other barriers. The plan has drawn mixed reactions from residents. Councillor Russ Wyatt questioned whether the city was getting the best value for its property.
Why is it on the city to do this? We're trying to maintain our infrastructure. That's the higher levels of government should be getting their act together.
Many who turned out were disappointed they didn't get the chance to speak.
We came prepared to have our voices heard on the matter, and that wasn't able to happen today.
I was going to speak in favor of the development of safe and supportive housing. I was going to speak on my own experiences with homelessness.
Committee Chair Evan Duncan says he doesn't want to rush the process.
This is going to be something that is new to the community, new to Winnipeg. We need to make sure that we get this right.
The Property Committee will reconvene for a special meeting on October 20th to continue the supportive housing hearing. And at that time, everyone who is here to speak today will get a chance to have their say. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba is the first province to sign on to a federal program helping cut some of their utility bills. Canada's Minister of Energy and Natural Resources was in the city today, announcing that Ottawa will provide $29 million. It will help those living on low to modest incomes make their homes more energy efficient. The province will match the federal money.
No upfront payments will make it easier for households to access simple, effective improvements that are tailored to each home's unique needs. These upgrades can include new insulation, sealing unwanted air leaks, and installing heat pumps.
It is the first time the program will also be available to tenants. The number of seizure specialists at Manitoba's largest hospital has been dwindling in the last year. Shared Health says 2 epileptologists at the Health Sciences Centre have left. And as Santiago Arias Orozco shows us, there are concerns about what that will mean for patients.
Like many teenagers, Liam Western likes to play sports, but physical activity like this one can get his body overheated and trigger a seizure.
He may flop over in his chair and he might twitch a little bit with his arm and stuff like that, and then he'll just stay silent for about 20 seconds and then he'll kind of slowly regain.
Liam was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was a baby. He's turning 17 in October, and next year he will be transferred to adult neurology, likely at the Health Sciences Centre. But that hospital has lost 2 seizure specialists, also known as epileptologists, since October. And Liam's mother is worried that could mean delays in getting appointments, or even out-of-province travel for medical treatment.
This whole journey that there's a shortage of neurologists, and I would just like it for the province or whoever's in charge to make it appealing for neurologists to come and stay.
Shared Health says 2 epileptologists are still working at the Health Sciences Centre, but Manitoba's Epilepsy and Seizure Association fears that those departures are leaving the hospital seizures clinic running at limited capacity.
And so how long somebody has to wait to see the specialist, even for that first visit, is going to increase exponentially because there are so few doctors now.
The union representing specialized healthcare workers say that 2 technologists working in neurology also left HSC a few weeks ago, and that wait times for testing are getting longer.
You have demands placed on existing staff without additional resources.
Back at Julie's house, she's hoping her son can stay under the care of the same specialist. With changes in staffing, Liam has been under the care of 4 different neurologists since his diagnosis.
You may be starting a medication here and then you switch neurologists because they leave and then they want to take you down a different path of neurology. It is a little bit frustrating.
Shared Health says it hired a new epileptologist, but the doctor won't join HSC until next year. There are also plans to bring 2 more seizure specialists on board, but there is no timeline. Santiago Arias Orozco, CBC News, Winnipeg.
All right, let's bring back in weather specialist Khalil Hassanali now. And Khalil, after all of that rain that some parts of the province saw through the overnight hours into the early morning this morning, we did see another day with a bit of sunshine here in the south after all that cleared, and temperatures above seasonal for this time of the year.
Overall, Riley, a very beautiful day in terms of the temperature that we saw in the city and also in lots of parts of the province. So this was our daytime high all around the province of Manitoba. We see in Brandon, it was a little bit cooler, around 19. We reached a high of 26 degrees. And then after all of that rainfall in Steinbach, we did get up to a high of 25. Looking a little bit north of us, the path was 26 degrees. And then looking up to the northern part of the province, up there in Churchill, we got up to a high of 12 degrees. As we're looking at the satellite radar, pretty quiet in terms of what's happening over top of the province right now and over the next little while. In terms of active weather, it's going to be more so to the west of us. You see a lot of thunder strikes and lightning strikes to the west of us, and also down towards Ontario, right around Thunder Bay, lots of lightning strikes down there as well. And that's where the active weather is currently. So not too much in terms of active weather that we're going to be seeing through the rest of the evening. And then we're looking at the radar, what's in store for us as we go towards the overnight and into tomorrow afternoon. Actually pretty calm in terms of any rain coming down. We're not seeing any active weather, but then it does start to change as we go towards Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening and into Sunday morning. As you see some cells start to move in, maybe to the west of us a little bit, right around Brandon over top of it, and then going up towards Dauphin. We see that in towards Sunday morning, and we see another cell start to develop as we go through the afternoon on Sunday. And then as we're looking further ahead, we're not going to be seeing much on Monday. It should be clearing out quite nicely. So this is where the active weather is going to be more so for our afternoon on Saturday and into the early parts of Sunday morning. So overall, pretty good, but Sunday could bring a little bit, let's say a little bit of a chance of some rain to come down overall, but nothing too bad. And into Tuesday, that's when it should start to clear out and we should see really a beautiful sky for us. As we're looking ahead, we're looking at the system that's over top of us, and that's bringing in this system of wet weather towards the later part of the weekend. And then a little bit of high pressure starts to set itself in, which is nice because that does bring us a little bit of sunshine. As we're planning ahead for the next little while, just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up about who I am. This is my dogs, Peanut and Butter. And as they're looking to get out for perhaps a walk in the next little while, we're waking up to a temperature right around 10 o'clock at 18 degrees, getting up to a high once again tomorrow, 25.
Very nice. Thanks, Khalil. All right, looking at the river as we head to break in probably only a few months from now. Hopefully we'll be skating on it once again. We have more news ahead for you right after the break. Stay with us. South of the border tonight, a man suspected of killing conservative U.S. political influencer Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Tyler Robinson is 22 years old and from Utah. Aaron Collins now on what we know about the suspect and the arrest.
In the end, it was the U.S. president that broke the news live on TV. After receiving thousands of tips, investigators in Utah had their man.
I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him.
The FBI director confirming that news shortly after.
This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie.
Investigators say the suspect was arrested late Thursday night. Tyler Robinson turned in with help from a friend of his family. That after the FBI released video of the suspect on the roof of Utah Valley University. Police believe it was that rooftop where a single shot was fired from a high-powered rifle. Investigators say the shooting of Charlie Kirk was targeted and potentially political. Told by Robinson's family he had become more political and critical of Kirk. Inscriptions found on unused bullet casings could provide a clue too. One reading, "Hey fascist, catch." Utah's governor speaking out against political violence.
It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are.
The president quick to condemn his political adversaries.
The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy.
Donald Trump weighing in on the suspect's future, too.
I hope he's going to be found guilty, I would imagine, and I hope he gets the death penalty.
There were calls for calm, too, from across the political spectrum, a hope that this latest case of political violence could bring Americans together, not push them further apart. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Washington.
Back in this country, thousands of parents in Quebec are scrambling to make last-minute plans to get their kids to and from school. That's because 1,200 electric school buses were suddenly pulled off the road. Earlier this week, the heating system on a Lion electric bus caught fire in Montreal. Several children and a driver were on the bus at the time, but managed to escape, and no one was injured. Concerns over the buses have had a ripple effect in other provinces as well, with a spokesperson confirming the service of 6 Lion diesel buses in Ontario now also suspended, and in PEI, an opposition MLA is calling the inspection of all 107 Lion buses in the provincial school fleet. Ontario is moving to ban parking around childcare facilities after a tragic incident earlier this week. A toddler died and 9 other people were injured after an SUV crashed into a daycare on Wednesday. A man in his 70s was arrested. The provincial government says it wants operators and municipalities to prevent the use of parking spaces near the entranceways, windows, and exterior walls of most childcare facilities. The education minister has asked officials to find any vulnerabilities before introducing legislation. The sexual assault of a toddler in Ontario is leading to warnings of vigilante justice. The suspect arrested was already convicted in the sexual assault of another child. Thomas Dagg walks us through the case and the heated reaction.
In Welland, Ontario, anger is boiling over. Consider this busy street where a noose now hangs as if to warn of a lynching. The target, Daniel Senecal, already a convicted sex offender. He's now charged in another sexual assault, this time involving a 3-year-old girl.
How difficult has this been for your family?
This case specifically, it just brings up a lot of memories.
This man's nephew was sexually assaulted by Senecal in 2021. To protect the child, we're not identifying his family. Shocked by the new allegations.
He was definitely let out too early. We thought that once he went through the whole process and that he was under probation and we can kind of have a little bit of closure and move on.
Police say this time the attacker broke into a toddler's home across town, choking and assaulting her.
I mean, put these people away, man, forever.
Petition to the government of Canada. Where
The case setting off this protest outside the courthouse, demanding the accused be denied bail and justice for the girl known as Little E.
I felt helpless when I heard, I'm getting emotional, when I heard what happened to Little E.
Many are demanding other names on the National Sex Offender Registry be made public. But
we have seen in the United States where registries are really publicly available, vigilante action against people who are registered. It sometimes has unintended consequences.
Indeed, some are openly threatening vigilante justice, like at this biker rally outside the Niagara jail, led by a noted white nationalist.
If the courts don't deal with you, I will.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre revealed the accused wants to be transferred to a women's prison, a request now denied, with Senecal remaining behind bars here. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Thorold, Ontario.
Canada's large immigrant population has long been regarded as a virtue, but new data suggests popular opinion on adding more newcomers has gone through a seismic shift after years of explosive growth. JP Tasker has the details.
This won't always be easy.
Outlining his priorities before Parliament's return, the Prime Minister says more changes are coming to an immigration system he calls unsustainable.
It's clear that we have to work to continue to improve our overall immigration policies. We're working on that, setting those goals, adjusting, and working to ease the strain on housing.
That commitment comes as public opinion moves sharply against more newcomers. Nearly 3/4 of Canadians now favor slashing immigration, according to a new survey.
It's almost like a whiplash.
This pollster says the about face is stunning.
We went from Canada welcoming Syrian refugees almost with like open arms and a very outwardly welcoming kind of posture to one today which is very close.
The country added roughly 1 million people a year for 3 years in a row, an influx that is testing housing and healthcare capacity and Canadians' patience for explosive growth.
It's too high. They've brought in too many people in too short a period of time.
The Conservatives are taking a harder line than they have in the past, demanding the temporary foreign worker program be scrapped to bring the numbers down.
We have a state-sponsored intervention that supports an indentured underclass. Instead of promoting policies that employ Canadian workers.
Even in Carney's caucus, there's pressure to curb the program, including from the MP who used to manage immigration.
We also have to have a conversation, I think, with industry that has gotten addicted to temporary work in Canada.
Immigrant rights groups are pushing back, saying population growth has already stalled out after cuts by the last government.
In times of economic crisis, anti-migrant sentiment really rises because it is used as a useful scapegoat.
Canada's large immigrant population has long been regarded as a virtue, but now it's fair game as the two major parties clamor to cut back. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
The federal government put a cap on international student visas early last year. As a result, the number of foreign students coming into this country has plummeted. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson went on campus to find out how that is making a difference.
This political science student is getting to see real-life repercussions of a political decision, the cap on international students allowed in Canada.
I definitely feel kind of the tensions, though, that are growing a little bit about people that are nervous about cuts to certain programs.
It's the start of the second academic year affected by caps on international students, brought in by the federal government in early 2024 to, among other things, reduce competition for housing. Even here at University of Toronto, the richest institution in Canada, which lost only about 300 international students last school year, students say they're observing subtle changes.
So I work with a lot of the incubators and accelerators here at University of Toronto, and we can already see there's been some cuts that are happening to the work-study programs. So these are programs where they hire students in order to come in and gain some experience.
International students at other institutions are feeling the impact of the caps even more keenly.
Right here at University of Regina, we did have a tuition increase this semester.
And we also have a change to our payments plan. Right now we have about a month before we have to make all of our tuition payments for each semester.
Part of the problem, Canadian institutions this year got fewer international students than they were allowed under the cap, as revealed by statistics on student visas.
International students are not feeling welcome by Canada like they once felt very welcome.
This representative for Canadian universities says the impacts are felt in both short and long term.
We need international students. They are our future citizens, our business leaders, our healthcare professionals, our community leaders.
While there's nothing in the books yet, leaders like him are hopeful for conversations with the federal government to settle on a number of international students acceptable to all. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Prince Harry met and shook hands with Ukrainian war veterans in Kyiv Friday during an unannounced visit to the capital. He posed for photographs and spoke with wounded soldiers at an event held at the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War. He arrived with a team from the Invictus Games Foundation. British reports say the visit aimed to outline the charity's plans to assist Ukrainian veterans. The trip to Kyiv caps off Harry's 4-day visit to Britain from his home in California. There's been a dramatic escalation in the space race between China and the United States. NASA is blocking Chinese nationals with U.S. visas from working in its space programs. The policy came into effect today. It's expected to affect hundreds of scientists and researchers. Both China and the U.S. plan to send crewed missions to the moon within the next 5 years. After the break, a Manitoba grandmother hits the fields one last time. We'll introduce you to the 99-year-old who wanted one more spin in the combine this harvest. That story's next. Stay with us. From haircuts to eye exams, an annual expo held in Winnipeg today brought essential services free of charge to people who need them, including those experiencing homelessness. The CBC's Felicia Adam was there.
This piece of paper from MPI means more opportunities for Jeremy Burns.
I have just currently signed to get a photo ID, and it should arrive in a few weeks.
The 25-year-old hasn't had an ID for years. Without it, he says he can't access housing or apply for jobs.
It's really good for me because I currently don't have any source of income right now, not at the moment anyways, not till I get a valid ID, which will help me in the long run.
Like him, over 1,000 people went to this year's Gijewa Taziwin Service Expo, getting the supports and resources they need free of charge.
We're all public health nurses from Access Downtown.
Al Weeb has experienced homelessness in the past.
For me, it's all about empowerment too, giving people something to grasp onto, to feel good about.
More than 40 organizations provided a range of services, including haircuts, clothing, and housing supports. Jasmine Bryan is from the Spence Neighborhood Association, which helps people access housing, among other things.
A lot of people don't know the resources that are out there and the services that people provide. So us being out here gives them information that we offer those services to them, and they can come see us for housing supports.
And homelessness's most recent street census shows more than 2,400 people living without a home on a single day in November of last year, the highest they've recorded since 2015. BJ Fontaine is seeing the need.
With the income that people get, it's not enough to pay the rent, plus pay their bills, plus buy food.
Organizers say the expo is about making connections.
It's really a way to give everybody that's here an opportunity to see what resources exist and make those connections today.
So they know who they can reach out to when they need it. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, she's lived nearly a century, but Olive Elliott isn't slowing down. She's knocking items off her bucket list, including getting back into the combine for harvest. The CBC's Chelsea Kemp visited her in Reston.
Olive Elliott has been putting parts of daily life on paper for years. Drawings of her favorite things, like life on the farm, a place the 99-year-old hasn't been able to visit for a while because of her health. But this week, Elliott was able to get back in the combine for the first time in years.
I knew I'd be watching from the car, but they thought yesterday that the car wasn't close enough that I'd like to be in the combine, and I certainly enjoyed it.
Over the last 4 years, Elliott has been recovering from a broken back and knee replacement. Her daughter, Janice Gould, says that was the first time Elliott missed harvest. Her family worried they would never see her in the field again. Gould says as her mom's health improved, they knew they had to get her back in the combine.
Because it's traditional, and she's darn near 100 years old. That's the other reason, like how many people her age are swift enough.
Elliott's grandson, Sheldon Gould, says it was a happy surprise to see her riding a combine.
It's good that she's active. A lot of 100-year-olds are losing their memory or can't walk or stuck in a nursing home or in a wheelchair. So
99 years of life comes with joys and challenges. But Elliott says she's grateful she can still have adventures at her age.
I'm not sure about getting too old. 100's good. And I'm just thankful that I still remember who I am.
Elliott is hoping to be back out in the field for next year's harvest. But at her age, she doesn't take anything for granted. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Reston, Manitoba.
Great reminder that harvest is continuing for many across southern Manitoba. Let's bring back weather specialist Khalil Hassanali. And Khalil, we are looking for some dry weather for that this weekend.
Overall, we're starting off the weekend, Riley, pretty nice. Saturday is going to be mostly sunny. There's going to be a few clouds in the sky, but we're not expecting any wet weather. That does come towards the end of the weekend, though. Looking at Sunday, possibly into Monday, where a bit of wet weather could come before us. But then after that, we're looking at a Tuesday that is going to be nice and warm. We're expecting a lot of sunshine for that day. What did we see in terms of high temperatures around the prairies this afternoon? We got up to a high high of 26 in Winnipeg. Up north in Thompson, we were at 22. The high in Churchill was 10 degrees. Looking at other provinces to the west of us, quite warm in Prince Albert at 28. Edmonton was also at the 27-degree mark. Even in southern Alberta, we were seeing a high of 26 degrees in Medicine Hat. So overall, warm weather, and we're looking at an evening low as we get down towards the teens. So the sunset tonight, we're looking at it coming down in a little over, just under an hour actually, looking at 7:49, and then the sunrise tomorrow coming up at 7 o'clock. So we're still experiencing more than 12 hours of daylight, which is really good for this time of year because that is going to be changing. This is what the records show. So we saw really high temperatures, 26, could it have broken any records? Unfortunately, it didn't. Our record high is from 2005 at 28.3 degrees. Thankfully, we're nowhere near that record low of 2.4, which was set in 2004. So once again, those are our sunrise and sunset times. Our normal high for this time of year is 19 degrees. So we're really above that in a very nice way, in a very comfortable way. As we go through the overnight hours, this is what we're going to be seeing around the province for our overnight lows. We are seeing some active weather towards the southwest of the province, but the city of Winnipeg should remain dry overall. And then to the north of us, as you go to Flin Flon, you're going to see 13 degrees, and then Norway House right around the 9-degree mark. And then as we go hour by hour in towards tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at a time at noon. Gillam is going to be about 15 degrees, and then in Norway House, we're looking at 17 degrees, rising up to 23. And then going from the morning to the afternoon down south, it's a little bit warmer, 16 degrees as we get started in the morning, 19 at noontime, and then as we go towards the afternoon, we're getting up to 22 degrees, and we're expecting on Saturday our high is going to be 25. No active weather expected, Riley.
All right, thanks, Khalil. Well, he may not be a geologist, but a Winnipeg man says he may have found a piece of history. And it turns out it could be a lot more than just a rock and over 500 years old. CBC's Shanley Vidal brings us the story.
This is definitely flint. This is pretty common in this area. It's a pretty design.
Sean Dole often walks along the Assiniboine River in Winnipeg and is always on the lookout for unique rocks.
It's interesting to take these things home and do some research and see what you can find and come up with. Found it right here.
On a recent riverbank stroll, Dole found something surprising to add to his collection.
First thoughts, I thought it was pottery, broken glass. Take it home and I Google lensed it or searched it and found something remotely similar to what I found, and it happens to be a bison tooth that's fossilized, and it could be possibly during the last ice age, or close to maybe 500 years, maybe 10,000, I don't know. It's kind of like a petrified rock, or wood, I should say. There's some weight to it. There is some indication of enamel, but everything is kind of like this bluish grayish tint, which caught my eye, but has all the looks about being an ancient artifact.
Prior to the 1800s, there were around 50 to 60 million bison on the prairies.
Sabrina Janke is with Fort White Alive, where a captive herd of more than 50 plains bison reside. Bison in Manitoba were seasonal migrators, trekking north to the Parkland region in winter. Janke says it's very possible this could be the real thing.
It's not surprising that they would be near water in general. They have to cross through the rivers that crisscross Manitoba to get anywhere, so they can run through them. They're quite heavy and tall and fast.
Finding a fossilized bison bone in Winnipeg is definitely possible, especially along a riverbank, according to Janke.
I feel like riverbanks are often a great spot to find artifacts, especially in years where the water is lower. Something about the muddy conditions lead to better preservation of old artifacts like that, and it makes sense that there's going to be stuff in that area that will wash up as shorelines erode, as rivers move, and as stuff in the dirt kicks up. It wouldn't be the first or the last time, I suspect, we hear of this.
Sean Dole says he's reached out to the Manitoba Museum for help with correctly identifying this possible bison tooth. However, it might take some time before the item is assessed.
It could be a bison, a deer, or a horse. I don't want to sound silly, but you can almost feel the energy of it almost. You can tell that it was a living creature that either was hunted or maybe stuck in the mud, or, you know, it's quite cool.
Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A previously lost work by 17th century Flemish master Peter Paul Rubens is going up for auction in France. The painting, titled Christ on Cross, was recently discovered in a private mansion in Paris. It's expected to fetch up to 2 million euros or 3.2 million Canadian dollars. Christ on Cross was thought to have disappeared in 1613, but it quietly remained in the hands of a French family until their home was sold and the painting discovered. The auction house says it is in exceptional condition with no restoration necessary, a rare event for a centuries-old Rubens work. Still ahead, a humpback whale swims free after days tangled in fishing gear. That story just ahead. Fisheries and Oceans Canada has freed a whale after a days-long rescue operation off Vancouver Island. 5-year-old humpback named Tutu was reported to be entangled on September 4th. The marine mammal was found dragging more than 450 feet of debris. The team attached a GPS tag to the trailing gear and eventually managed to safely remove it and free Tutu. Officials are urging the public to cut looped packing material before disposing. Winnipegger Jonathan Toews is back on the ice with his hometown team. He has been skating with the Jets ahead of training camp opening next week. The 37-year-old has been away from the NHL for 2 years due to chronic inflammation and immune system issues likely related to long COVID. The former Chicago Blackhawks captain signed a contract with the Jets in July. Toews is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, a 6-time NHL All-Star, and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist.
And welcome back. Our regular high for this time of year is right around the 19-degree mark, but overall we're seeing temperatures much higher than that over the next little while, especially looking into the rest of next week as well. So 25 degrees under a partly cloudy sky, that's what we're expecting for tomorrow. As we go towards Sunday, maybe a little bit more active weather entering the picture, but still seeing a nice high of 27. Come Monday, that rain is expected to continue. And then as we go towards Tuesday, a return to warm weather and return to sunshine, a blue sky, as we get up to a high of 27 degrees. Riley?
All right, thanks, Khalil. Well, it may not quite be beach weather anymore, even if the temperatures are nice. But in California, it's more than just the humans enjoying the beach. Here's your daily lift. Doesn't that look like fun? These canines hit the waves as part of the annual Surf Dogs Surfathon in the community of Del Mar. More than 50 dogs took part in competition. It was all for the 20th annual Surf Dogs Surfathon. It was all for a good cause too, with pet parents and their pooches banding together to raise money for a local animal shelter. Faith, the pit bull, took the top spot. And like often is the case with our daily lifts, the animals can always do the sports and all that stuff better than I can do it as a person. Thank you for being with us on this Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great one.